You were just 12 years old, living a simple life in a rural village during the Ming Dynasty. The year is 1570. The houses are modest, whitewashed walls, thatched roofs, and dirt floors. Your days are spent with household chores, helping your mother, fetching water, and occasionally playing in the dusty courtyard. Life is hard, brutal, but predictable, until one afternoon, a polished, gleaming black carriage arrives in your village from the capital. Its shiny surface, reflecting the summer sun, does not belong here. From the carriage, a government official descends, surrounded by his attendants. Dressed in embroidered silks, his gloved hands are still, his face a mystery. The villagers gather in silence, and a tense quiet fills the air. Such visits rarely bring good news. You are called forward. Your name is not asked. Your teeth, skin, posture, and especially your feet are carefully inspected. He speaks very little. His gaze is not harsh but cold and clinical. This is not a conversation. It is the silent process of an assessment. The official speaks to your father. There is no negotiation. A pouch of silver is placed in your father's hands. He doesn't look at you as he takes it. You're not being sold for marriage. You're not being sent to work in a noble house. You are now the property of the state. You have been selected for the inner court. You can't quite grasp its meaning. Many girls couldn't. All you know is that your life as a girl has come to an end. You are taken immediately without being able to gather anything. The journey begins in a carriage with other girls your age or a little older. There is no talk. The guards with you are armed. You cannot tell if they are for protection or to prevent your escape. Before we step into these forgotten stories of time, if you are curious about the secret and chilling layers of history, liking and subscribing allows us to uncover these dark secrets together. By sharing where you're watching from in the comments, we can form a connection on this forgotten journey. After a journey of several days, you arrive in Beijing. The massive, red, and silent walls of the Forbidden City rise before you. You're led through long gates and handed over to the palace officials. Their presence is intimidating. Their voices are high-pitched, their demeanor distant and cold. They are not cruel, but their indifference sends its own message. You have not arrived to be welcomed, but to be processed. The hall where the physical examinations begin is cold and clinical. You and the other girls are stripped and inspected again. Height, skin tone, foot size, symmetry, everything is evaluated. One girl is dismissed because of a birthmark on her back. Another is rejected for a slight squint in her left eye. You remain. Your small feet, though not yet bound, are seen as having potential. If they were not bound before, they would be now. Foot binding, while not practiced throughout the world, was a requirement in elite circles. Your feet are tightly wrapped, your toes curled under the soles. The bandages are applied tightly, and bones crack. The pain is not momentary. It turns into a daily, repeating torture. In this world, tiny arched feet are a symbol of refinement and obedience. Beauty here is not about naturalness, but about control. For the next year, you will learn to walk again. Your new home is not a single room, but a section of the Forbidden City reserved for young concubines in training. You are not yet a true consort, just a candidate, a servant, but you are watched carefully. Oh, you are taught palace protocols, how to kneel, how to present tea, how to bow, how to walk without lifting your eyes, and how to dress correctly. You learn how to address the senior women, the supervisors, and the palace officials. Silence is valued. Obedience is rewarded. Mistakes are not forgotten. Every day begins before dawn. It is your duty to clean your room and serve the senior consorts you are assigned to. Some are kind, most are not. The Forbidden City is not a sanctuary. It is a ruthless political machine where everyone is watched and everyone is a competitor. You are taught calligraphy, embroidery, music, and soft, slow speech. But not for self-expression, for service and entertainment. The goal is not education, but transformation. One day, the emperor may call for you. Whether that day comes depends on your appearance, your demeanor, and your ability to avoid mistakes. The senior concubines pay you no mind, but their silence is not protection. It is distance. Their status depends on not being associated with the lower ranks. A few will glance at you only to correct your posture or scold mistake. It is safer to be invisible than to be noticed. Whispers circulate like a shadow among the young girls. Stories are told of former concubines who vanished from the palace. Some were exiled, some were imprisoned, and some are said to have been sent to their deaths for breaking the rules. No one knows the truth. Their names aren't even mentioned. Silence surrounds every corner like the cold breath of death. The meals are simple but sufficient. Sleeping quarters are shared with straw mats and mosquito nets. Not even the shadow of luxury is seen here. Your body aches from the training and the constant pressure to look correct. Your mind is in a constant state of alertness. You have forgotten the quiet of the countryside. Here, silence is a luxury, a rare memory. Everything is written by a strict order and cold rules. You are told that serving in the palace is a privilege, but the eyes of the older women tell a different story. Very few smile, and even fewer speak freely. As months pass, you're no longer the newest arrival. You watch the new girls with the same quiet attention. You learn the hierarchy, how fragile it is, and how quickly it can change. You are 13, still a child, but inside the Forbidden City, childhood dies with the closing of the gate. You are now part of the Imperial family, not a guest, not even a servant, but an entity, protected and prepared. For one single possibility, the Emperor's interest. Whether this interest comes or not will determine the course of your life. And if it does, it will only open the door to another set of dangers. You are now 13. A year has passed since you entered the Forbidden City. You no longer flinch when the doors close behind you. The red walls, once foreign and massive, are now a permanent barrier. You have memorized every corridor between your rooms and the inner courtyards. You have learned to walk silently, to speak only when addressed, and to keep your eyes cast downward. Your rank is still low. You are not yet an imperial concubine, but you serve as concubines. The Imperial Harem is not a women's paradise. It is a battlefield. The women are separated by rank, reputation, and influence. At the top are the empress and the senior consorts. At the bottom are those like you, chosen and in training. Your days begin before dawn. You wash, put on your standard silk dress, and report for duty. Today, you are assigned to assist a second-rank consort who has been serving the emperor for 10 years. She does not speak to you unless you make a mistake. If you pour her tea too slowly, she taps the table twice. It is a warning, not a scolding. You immediately correct your speed. Emotions are forbidden. An overly smug smile, a long pause, a glance too high, all can be a fatal misinterpretation. The women above you are not family, not mentors. They are rivals. They protect their positions with quiet meticulousness. You learn to read the tone, to notice subtle changes in posture, and when to remain silent. These are not social skills, but rules of survival. The rules are never fully explained. Some are written. Do not speak to a man unless ordered to. Do not leave your room after nightfall. Do not defy a eunuch. But most rules are enforced silently. They are enforced by tradition and punishment. You learn the hard way. Last week, the girl who slept beside you whispered to a senior consort and never returned. No explanation was given. You are beginning to understand that power in the harem is fragile, but absolute. The emperor is a distant, almost mythical figure. You have never seen him. You have only heard his preferences from the lips of the senior women. But your life revolves around the possibility of him noticing you. Being called into his presence is rare. Being invited a second time is even rarer. Yet, it is the only way to rise. The competition is silent but constant. You correct your posture when a senior eunuch passes by. You privately practice your fan movements. Information is shared in whispers. Who is in favor this week? Who has fallen out of favor? Who cried in front of the emperor's mother? Even small mistakes can end your career. Every step, every silent breath, feels like walking a fine line between death and power. The Forbidden City is a brutal labyrinth. You are a soul trying to survive among the shadows. You have now started to live within the cold walls of the palace corridors, which are woven with shadows. Every step you take, Every breath you draw is measured and evaluated by watching eyes. Silence here is not a gift, but a chain. Every wrong move, every unintentional glance, is the harbinger of a storm that could destroy you. One afternoon, a young girl from your group dropped a spoon of soup during service. She was punished with the cold and brutal sound of bamboo sticks. She was brought back with swollen and bruised knuckles. Another girl was accused of speaking too much with a guard and disappeared forever. The guards and eunuchs are not allies. Their silent gazes are a threat. Every corner is watched. Every breath is monitored. There is no trust here, only power. Whispers circulate. Stories are told of former concubines who vanished, some exiled, others imprisoned and never seen again. The truth of the stories was unimportant. Their purpose was to create fear, ensure obedience, and shape you. The palace was a labyrinth where order, not justice, reigned. Your feet hurt more every day. You had to live with a pain as if your bones were permanently broken and buried in the ground. But you had learned, hiding pain was power, invisible pain was weakness. To walk with grace and smile silently was a necessity. Your intelligence was valuable only if it could be masked as subtlety. Every glance, every movement was measured in the minds of those watching you. You kept your eyes down, lowered your voice, and silenced your steps. To be invisible in the eyes of others was the only way to survive. This palace was not a game, but a test of life and death. Every wrong move could push you into the darkest pit of the hierarchy. Time passed. A year went by. You were now tolerated, but still not a favorite, not a trusted one. Every day, the same ritual: scrubbing floors, pouring tea, bringing clothes, serving in silence. Every step was watched carefully, every word a small test. The harem was a labyrinth of a brutal order. Power was hidden in the slightest gestures and greetings. You are now 16. 3 years have passed. Most girls' paths have ended, and you are still alive. The corridors are silent, but this silence is deceptive. Every corner is watched, every movement evaluated. You are still a concubine in training, still walking among the shadows. But now you know the rhythm. You have learned how to move without being noticed, how to be noticed and not punished. Then one evening, a eunuch appeared among the dark shadows and gave a silent instruction. You will go to the emperor's presence. There was no explanation, no guarantee, just a silent command. The rhythm of your heart quickened. As you walked through the shadows, every step carried you to the brink of a new destiny. The palace was a labyrinth, a trap, and a playground. To survive here, you had to be silent, invisible, and able to dance with the shadows. The other women were hushed into silence by your preparation. No one gave advice. No one offered guidance. You, alone among the cold stone walls, bathed, donned the silk robes chosen by the senior servants, and were powdered by the silently working women. The silence was like a curse woven into the heavy air of the room. Your feet were tightly bound, unable to walk, so you were carried in a silk sedan to the emperor's dark rooms. When the doors closed behind you, what happened inside was not discussed, not recorded, not even thought about. The next morning, a new you was born. The fleeting glances from the servants reshaped you. Everything had changed now. Time moved silently and insidiously, and the rhythm of life was intertwined with death. Weeks later, the palace physician silently confirmed it. You are pregnant. This news spread silently within the cold walls of the palace, but its echoes soon reached the entire harem. In the Imperial Harem, pregnancy was both a harbinger of a rise and a profound threat. Giving birth to a son could raise you to the status of a formal concubine or consort, but it also turned eyes upon you, turning allies into rivals and rivals into enemies. Your room changed. You were given new clothes, better food, and a personal servant. Your name was entered into the official records, and eunuchs now looked at you more carefully, but the women above you turned their silence into calculation. Rumors began to be whispered. A senior concubine insinuated that you bribed the physician. Another claimed you put poison in her tea. The emperor's mother, Empress Dajagger, the most powerful woman in the harem, summoned you. Her power overshadowed even the emperor's authority. She silently inspected you. Her questions were sharp, cold, and emotionless. Who did you speak to? What did you eat? Who looks after your room? She said not a word about the accusations, but her gaze was fixed on you for a long time. When you returned to your room, you didn't touch your food that night. You waited. Nothing happened. The next morning, your servant told you that the accuser had been sent to another residence. Nothing was official, no record existed, but the warning was clear. Your status was protecting you for now. A few months later, you gave birth in silence, a son. The announcement was carefully hidden. A few gifts came. Some eunuchs bowed lower than usual. The child was taken from your room and raised under the supervision of official wet nurses in the palace of Eternal Garden. You could see him only at designated times. He was wrapped in silk, watched by guards and servants. You were not allowed to hold him. Still, the birth elevated you. You were given the title of fifth-rank concubine. You were no longer from the lower classes. You would participate in more formal ceremonies, dress more exquisitely, and be subject to a new level of scrutiny. The rise brought with it risks like a shadow. The women who ignored you before now began to whisper when you entered a room. Some were kind, some were not. One offered you a hair ornament as a gift. You did not accept it. Then a servant told you there were rumors it was poisoned. The political atmosphere in the harem became heavy. The emperor now came rarely. He divided his time among dozens of women. Your status depended on perception, not love. In the palace, perception replaced reality. A eunuch brought you a message. Empress Dajagger wanted to see you again. When you went, a physician and a scribe were with her. Her voice did not rise. It was said that another woman had cursed the emperor's health. According to imperial law, this could be punishable by death, especially in times of illness or political turmoil. You were ordered to defend yourself. You denied the accusation. Your voice was steady, but your mind was racing. You remembered your son. You remembered the girl who disappeared after a similar accusation. You remembered the closed doors, the locked rooms. Now, every step, every breath was taken carefully and in silence, because to survive in the shadows of the palace, you had to know how to hide in the silence. The silence of the palace had settled with an almost suffocating weight as Empress Dajagger watched you without moving. The shadows danced with the dim lights hanging from the high ceilings, and the echo of every step left a dead sound on the stone walls. At that moment, a servant from your room slipped out silently. The words that fell from her lips seemed to carry a cold and certain truth. Another concubine had bribed a eunuch to secretly place herbs in your room. Without her hands trembling, she presented a letter as evidence, revealing a betrayal transcribed on ink and parchment. Empress Dajagger read the letter in silence. Her expression was as blank as stone. Her eyes were cold. Then she gave a single command, with a deadly silence. The accusing concubine was taken away. She would not return. You were saved, but this salvation was stained with the shadow of a dark lesson. From that moment on, you took your steps more carefully. You wrote nothing, spoke little. Every movement was deliberate, measured, and filtered. You understood that your pregnancy was not your greatest trial. This was a dark passage that had taken you to a new level of danger. You were now fighting not just to be noticed, but to survive. The harem was governed by silent rules and shifting loyalties. A favor won today was forgotten tomorrow, and today's ally turned into an enemy when night fell. The higher you rose, the more vulnerable you became. Now you planned silently, protected your son, managed your servants, and carefully watched every movement of those around you. Your rooms were swept every day. Your food was secretly tested. You could not sleep, waking up at every rustle. There were no locks on your doors, no security. You were 16 years old. You lived in the most magnificent palace in the world. You ate from golden bowls and wore embroidered silks. But every step was covered by the shadow of a downfall. You were no longer unknown, and this, perhaps, was the greatest danger. By the time you were 22, your youth had ended in the Forbidden City. The new girls, with their fresh skin and unpracticed smiles, reminded you of yourself 6 years ago. The emperor had not called for you in months. His interest had shifted elsewhere. His health was deteriorating, his silence deepened, and his shadow grew within the palace. Your son was now a toddler and still lived in the inner section under the emperor's protection. You were only his mother by name. His feeding, education, and sleep were all strictly controlled. An uneasy whisper circulated in the palace. Grain prices had risen, and rumors of the plague were coming from beyond the palace walls. Inside, the smoke of an upcoming purge insidiously wafted among the silks. There were too many mouths in the Forbidden City, too many useless concubines. Just like the more than 100 women who disappeared in a previous palace famine, a dark fate awaited. One night, the darkness fell upon you like a silent scream. A fourth-rank concubine, once a rival but now a mortal threat, claimed that you had harmed the emperor's health with sorcery. Dried herbs placed under your bed were shown as evidence. You denied everything, but denial had no value here. You were dragged by your feet to the outer courtyard. The emperor's mother, Empress Dajager, was waiting in a covered spot. Her expression was unreadable. Beside her, the executioner watched you with his sharp blade in his hand. She offered you a choice: confess or witness your son being taken on the same dark path. You knelt, your hands bound, your face touching the ground. Your throat was dry, and breathing was almost impossible. But you did not confess. You waited, and just before the death sentence was announced, your servant appeared. In her hand was a stolen letter. It revealed the plot. The eunuch bribed by the pearl earringed concubine had placed the herbs in your room. The goal was not just to eliminate you, but to clear the way for her own son. Empress Dajager read the letter in silence. She spoke only once. The accusing concubine was taken away and never returned. You were set free, but the message was clear. Survival was not a victory. It was only a slight delay of the darkness. That night you could not close your eyes. The shadows and the silence did not leave you. The next day, in the shadow of the darkness, you secretly send your son beyond the iron bars of the palace, towards the fragile hope of life. The home of a distant cousin, a quiet and rural place, accepts him. This act is illegal, fraught with dangers, but he has found his only chance to breathe beyond the walls of this palace. You see him one last time. You do not shed tears. You do not whisper words. You just hold him in your arms until the servant's gentle but cold hands take him from you. Then, you watch him fade into the darkness of the shadowy corridor and return to your room in silence. Weeks pass, and months follow, and your lungs burn with a nightly fever. Your cough never ceases. Your long-bound, broken feet rot with infection. The palace doctors are at the emperor's service every day, but they do not take a single step for women like you. You lie on an old, worn mat, in silk clothes thinned by the weight of the years. The girls you once trained now shape others. Their eyes slide past you, focused on their own dark paths of advancement. You are now 25. Your name is only spoken on a few lips. Your body now betrays you. It has become weak. You are no longer useful to the emperor, but you are still here. This is a silent rebellion in the shadow of the palace, because you have achieved what most could not. You navigated the labyrinth of the palace without a family name, unprotected, and without losing the identity you had before the gates closed. You raised your son, protected him, and moved him away from the clutches of this life that consumed you. Your breath becomes a thin, trembling whisper. The nights grow longer, and the darkness becomes more intense. One evening, there is no light outside your door. The silence whispers the cold breath of your approaching fate. Your last thoughts are not about the palace or the emperor, but about your son, whose name you could not say aloud. You wish for him to forget you. You hope for him to live. Your last breath slips away without need for any ceremony. No record is kept. No inscription is left. Your story silently disappears behind the stones and walls. The palace continues. The silk walls rustle. Swords are hidden in arms, and new girls practice their bows and their curtsies. But somewhere beyond the walls, your son walks freely with unbound feet. You were never just an ornament. You were not a jewel in a crown. You were a living resistance to a system designed to consume you. And in your silence, your legacy still breathes.